Tonight, we are not exploring science fiction. We are opening a historical cold case file, a collection of official state records that spans 4,000 years. Its authors were not novelists or poets, but royal astronomers, court historians, and imperial scholars of ancient China. With meticulous care, they documented events they could not explain, using the language of their time to describe things that should not have existed. These are not myths or legends. These are the official, unidentified aerial phenomena reports of the ancient world. Prepare to see history and our place in the universe in an entirely new light. Our journey begins at the dawn of Chinese civilization, nearly 4,000 years ago, when the Great Pyramids of Egypt were still a relatively new wonder of the world. In this ancient time, China's very first dynasty, the Xia, was just beginning to forge a nation. Their history was recorded in a text known as the Bamboo Annals. Buried within its chronicles of kings and battles is a single, terrifying entry. In the 8th year of the reign of a king named Meng, a catastrophic event occurred. The official record states, with chilling simplicity, 10 suns were seen in the sky at the same time. 10 suns. In Chinese mythology, this event is famously linked to the legend of a divine archer, Hao Yi, who heroically shot down the 9 extra suns to save the world from being incinerated. For thousands of years, the world has accepted this as a powerful but fanciful myth. But we must ask a critical question. Why would a formal, state-sponsored history book dedicated to recording factual events document such an impossible occurrence? Let's remove the filter of mythology and apply the lens of modern ufology. Imagine being an ancient observer with no concept of technology, spacecraft, or life on other worlds. You look up and see 10 colossal, blindingly bright, spherical objects hanging silently in the sky. They radiate light and heat just like the sun. Lacking the vocabulary of unidentified aerial phenomena or extraterrestrial vehicle, you would use the only word you had to describe the most powerful, most terrifying celestial object you knew: the sun. This record may not be a myth about divine archery. It could be the earliest documented mass sighting of a UFO fleet in human history, an event so shocking and so profound it could only be recorded as a world-altering omen. And this was only the beginning. Let's move forward in time to 221 BC. China has been unified under its first and perhaps most famous emperor, Qin Shi Huang. This was a man of immense power and ambition, the visionary behind the Great Wall and the commander of a silent, subterranean army of terracotta warriors. He was a ruler who believed he had conquered the known world. But an ancient text called the Shi Yi Ji, or A Record of Lost Legacies, tells of an encounter that challenged the emperor's understanding of his own world. A group of mysterious visitors arrived at his grand capital. They claimed to be from a land called Wanku, and they traveled in a remarkable vessel described as a conch-shaped ship. This was no ordinary boat. The text explicitly states it was a submersible that could travel for vast distances deep beneath the ocean without a single drop of water penetrating its hull. A submarine 2,000 years before submarines were invented. But their vehicle was not the only marvel. These Wanku people presented the emperor with a piece of their technology, a glowing stone. The record describes how a piece of this stone, no larger than a grain of rice, could illuminate an entire palace hall with a brilliant light that lasted through the entire night. Let's analyze this with a 21st century perspective. The conch-shaped ship is a perfect description of a USO, an unidentified submerged object, a transmedium vehicle capable of operating both in the sky and deep in the sea. The visitors themselves, from a land no one had ever heard of, presented technology that defies explanation. The glowing stone sounds less like magic and more like a form of highly advanced, manipulated energy, perhaps a cold fusion battery or a zero-point energy device. Was this a diplomatic mission from an undersea civilization or from somewhere else entirely? The first emperor of China, a man who had seen everything, was given a technology demonstration that was, by any measure, out of the world. After the short-lived Qin dynasty, the glorious Han dynasty rose, an era of unprecedented scientific advancement and cultural flourishing, comparable to the Roman Empire in the West. During this period, astronomical observation became a rigorous state-sponsored science. And because their records were so precise, the anomalies they document are even more compelling and more unsettling. In the year 139 BC, under the reign of the powerful Emperor Wu, the official Book of Han, one of the most respected historical texts in all of China, made a short but staggering entry. Quote, "In the 4th month of summer, a star as bright as the sun appeared at night." Let the impossibility of that statement sink in. A celestial object in the dead of night with the luminosity of our own sun. This immediately rules out every known astronomical body. No planet, no distant star shines that brightly. A supernova would have been recorded as a guest star that lingered for weeks or months. This was different. This was a singular event. A massive, intensely luminous object of unknown origin appeared in the night sky, so brilliant that the imperial astronomer, a man dedicated to scientific observation, had no other way to describe it. Just over a century later, in the year 6 BC, the same official history recorded another event that defies physics. The text reads, quote, "In the morning, a sky dog fell to the west, making a sound like a great bell." The term sky dog was the common name for a meteor or a bolide. We know the sounds meteors make when they explode in the atmosphere: sonic booms, crackling, a thunderous roar. They do not, however, ring like a bell. A bell's sound is a structured harmonic resonance, the vibration of a specifically shaped metallic object. Rock and ice don't ring. Metal rings. This ancient record strongly suggests that what fell from the sky that morning was not a random piece of space debris, but a manufactured object with a metallic resonance structure that vibrated audibly as it disintegrated in the atmosphere. Now we travel to one of the most turbulent and romanticized periods in Chinese history, the Three Kingdoms era, in the year 234 AD. The legendary strategist and statesman Zhuge Liang, a figure often described as the Leonardo da Vinci of his time, lay dying on the battlefield of Wuzhong Plains. He was a genius of engineering, military strategy, and governance. And as his life waned, a truly extraordinary event was witnessed by his entire army and recorded in the official records of the Three Kingdoms. The account describes it thusly, quote, "A red blazing star came from the northeast and descended over Zhuge Liang's camp. It dove downwards 3 times and pulled up twice, appearing to grow larger and then smaller before vanishing." Let us dissect this remarkable description. A meteor follows a simple, unchangeable trajectory dictated by gravity and velocity. It cannot change direction. This object, however, demonstrated what can only be described as intelligent control. It dove 3 times and pulled up twice. This is a textbook description of powered flight, of a craft performing complex anti-gravity maneuvers. Furthermore, the record states it grew larger and then smaller, a clear indication of an object moving closer to the observers and then further away. On the very night that one of Earth's greatest minds was passing away, a red, unidentified craft executed a series of aerial maneuvers directly over his camp. Was it an observer drawn to a moment of historical significance? We cannot know, but the official record leaves no doubt. This was a machine, not a meteor. Following the chaos of the Three Kingdoms during the Jin dynasty, the celestial phenomena grew even more complex. The sightings were no longer of single objects, but of coordinated fleets. In the year 292 AD, the Imperial Book of Jin recorded an event that sounds like it was taken directly from a modern sci-fi film. Quote, 3 stars flew in formation alongside the planet Saturn, moving to the northwest. They then entered the area of the moon and merged into one. This is an astonishing report. 3 distinct objects flying in a controlled formation executed what can only be described as a docking maneuver in orbit, becoming a single, larger object. This is a description of advanced fleet dynamics recorded 1700 years ago. And it was not an isolated incident. Just 22 years later, in 314 AD, the same historical texts recorded another mind-blowing event. First, an object described as being like the sun fell from the sky. And then 3 more suns appeared, flying in formation from west to east. Once again, the multiple suns phenomenon. This recurring pattern of brightly lit craft flying in precise formation, documented centuries apart, suggests a consistent and purposeful presence.
If the previous records were startling, our next account is arguably the most detailed, scientific, and credible ancient UFO report in world history. It comes from the 11th century, during the sophisticated Song dynasty, and the witness was not just a casual observer. He was Shen Kuo, a government official, a diplomat, and China's most brilliant scientific mind of his time. In his highly respected scientific journal, The Dream Pool Essays, he dedicates an entire section to an object he investigated personally, known locally as the Pearl of Yangzhou.
For over a decade, this object appeared repeatedly over a lake in the Jiangsu province. Shen Kuo, ever the scientist, interviewed numerous eyewitnesses. They described it as a giant, luminous pearl. At first, it would appear with its door closed. Then, suddenly, its shell would crack open, casting out a beam of intense, horizontal white light. Shen Kuo wrote that the light was so powerful that the shadows of every tree within a 10-mile radius were clearly visible, transforming the darkest night into day. This is a clear description of physical trace evidence. After its display, the object would shoot upwards at a speed so incredible that it seemed to ripple the water below, and would vanish instantly with a sound like a clap of thunder. This report from a master scientist contains all the key elements of a modern high-strangeness UFO case: long-term repeated observation, a structured mechanical object that could open and close, the controlled projection of a powerful energy beam, tangible physical effects on the environment, and finally, a silent, high-velocity vertical ascent, a classic anti-gravity characteristic. Shen Kuo's pearl is not just a story, it is a scientific investigation of an advanced, unknown technology. His account is corroborated by China's most famous poet, Su Dongpo, who, in the same era, wrote a poem about witnessing a fiery torch rise from a river at night. Baffled by what he saw, he ended his poem with a timeless question. It is neither a ghost nor a man-made thing, so what can it be? As we move into China's final imperial dynasties, the Ming and the Qing, the encounters become even more frequent, more detailed, and eerily more modern. A Ming dynasty record from the 16th century describes a tailed star that was rotating like a wheel, a classic flying saucer description. Then, in 1862, a Qing dynasty gazette from Hubei province reports a silver plate flying through the night sky. It emitted a harsh, piercing, high-frequency sound before suddenly exploding, showering the sky in smaller points of light. A silver, disc-shaped craft with a specific sound signature, experiencing a mid-air disintegration. The parallels to modern reports are undeniable. But the most shocking account of this period comes from 1880. It is China's clearest historical record of what modern researchers would call a fourth-kind encounter, an alien abduction. The county records of Songzi tell the story of a villager who was in the mountains when he encountered a dazzling, multicolored, spiraling object. Instantly, he was sucked upwards into the object by an unseen force. He described the terrifying sensation of being lifted high into the clouds, the only sound being the rush of wind past his ears. The next thing he knew, he was dropped. When he regained his senses, he was no longer in his home province. He was in Guizhou, nearly 1,000 miles away. It took the bewildered and traumatized man 18 days to walk home. This incredible account from the 19th century describes all the key components of an abduction: capture by a tractor beam, disorientation and missing time, and impossible translocation over a vast distance. Our journey through this hidden history concludes in the year 1892. The age of photography was dawning, and the world was on the cusp of modernity. And for the first time, our evidence is not just text, it is a picture. An artist named Wu Yoru published a detailed illustration in a popular Shanghai newspaper. He titled it "The Red Flame in the Sky." The image is stunning. It depicts a massive, glowing, egg-shaped object floating slowly over the busy city of Nanjing. On the ground below, hundreds of people are shown, their faces turned to the sky, pointing in a mixture of awe, curiosity, and fear. The artist's own caption states that the object drifted slowly from west to east, visible for the time it takes to eat a meal, before finally accelerating and flying away.
This was not a fleeting glimpse. It was a prolonged mass sighting in a major metropolitan area, documented for posterity by a journalist and artist. It is, perhaps, the 19th century's clearest, most widely witnessed UFO event. From the 10 suns of 4,000 years ago to the documented abduction of the 1880s. From flying fleets that could merge into a single craft to scientific reports of objects that could turn night into day. From metallic craft that rang like a bell if they fell to flying machines that performed impossible anti-gravity maneuvers in front of an entire army. The records are all here. They span dozens of dynasties, thousands of years, and the entire breadth of China. Their authors are the most credible sources of their time. The patterns are undeniable, and the descriptions are eerily consistent with modern UFO sightings. Our ancestors were not primitive storytellers inventing monsters in the sky. They were meticulous record keepers, trying to make sense of a reality that defied their understanding. They used the words they had, suns, stars, plates, pearls, and wheels, to describe the incomprehensible. These ancient Chinese chronicles represent one of the largest and longest-running collections of UFO data in human history. They suggest that history is not just the story of humanity, but perhaps a record of our long and largely forgotten interaction with the unknown. These voices from the past are not just telling stories. They are giving testimony, and their combined testimony points to one earth-shattering conclusion. Perhaps the question isn't if they will ever visit. Perhaps the evidence from history is telling us they have never left.